Alright, welcome back guys. In this video, you will learn how to use the shape tools inside Photoshop. As you follow along this video, you will be able to create this icon, and in the end, you will be able to create this profile picture for Instagram. So let's get started. Inside Photoshop, shapes can be created using two ways. You can either use the pen tool to create shapes, or you can choose to use the geometric shape tools that shape with Photoshop. Let's start by pressing the P key to access the pen tool. On the options bar, you see we are currently set to path mode. That is not what we want. So click on the word path and change it to shape. Now a shape has a fill and a stroke. Let's click on the word fill to review these options. As you can see, we can make it either a no fill, a solid color fill, a gradient, or pattern fill. Let's choose the solid color fill and hover down here to bring the eyedropper tool. As you see, I can sample the black color. Let's also click on the stroke fill and you see similar options. I actually want this to be a pink stroke, so I'll sample the pink color, and right now I will define the stroke width of 30 pixels. Now with all these settings, I can just click with the pen tool just like so to create a shape. Notice that as I move the pen tool to the first click point, we get this circle below the pen tool. What this circle tells you is that if you were to click right now, you are going to close this path or this shape. So let's just do that. And you see we get a shape that has a black fill and a pink stroke. Now if you are not very familiar with the pen tool, I would recommend you watch the video I've created on how to use the pen tool. I explain how to use the pen tool in more details in that particular video, so I'm going to leave a link down in the video description. Now before I proceed any further, the most important thing you need to know is that once you have a shape created, that shape can be modified. And to modify any shape, there are two important tools inside Photoshop that enable you to do that. These tools are the path selection tool and the direct selection tool. So let's select the path selection tool from here. And what the path selection tool allows you to do is, it allows you to move the whole path as you can see on the display here. But with the direct selection tool selected, you can be able to click on individual points such as this point right here, and you can be able to modify that point again just like so. Now let us say I intend to make this straight portion here a curved segment. For that, I can press P to go to my pen tool. Then notice that once I hover to this portion, we get a plus sign next to the pen tool. So if I were to click here, we will create a point to this portion. This point is going to be dragged outward to define the smooth curve I need to create here. So I'll switch to my direct selection tool, and this time I click on this point I just created with the pen tool, and I'll move it up like so. And if you have followed my pen tool video, you know that with the pen tool selected, you can hold the Alt key and click on any of these control handles to further define that path the way you want. So I can move this one inside here and come maybe here, hold the Alt key and reposition this one like so. So just remember, if you need to move this shape even when you don't have the move tool selected or active, you can always use the black arrow or the path selection tool. But if you need to modify individual points on any given shape, you can always switch to the direct selection tool. Now let us press the backspace key to get rid of this shape, and on the toolbar, let us right click on the rectangle tool to reveal these other shape tools which we are going to see in this video. For now, let's just select the rectangle tool. Once you have the rectangle tool selected, we have different settings relating to that particular tool here on the options bar. Now the rectangle tool enables you to draw rectangles and squares. For you to create a rectangle, you can do that in two methods. First, you can be able to click and drag freeform, and as you do that, you get this heads up display with a width and height value. As you can see, we have a width value of 1036 pixels and a height value of 412 pixels. If I release, we created a rectangle with a black fill and pink stroke. The next way to create a rectangle is more precise, and for you to be able to do that, you just click once. Once you click, you will bring the create rectangle dialog box and you can manually input the values here. So for the width, I can input 1000 and press the tab key, which is going to advance to the next value, and I input maybe 500. And then I just press the enter key and the shape gets created as well. Now one thing you must have noticed is each time a shape is created, the properties panel pops on the screen automatically. If that behavior is not something which you want, you can always click on this button and make sure show on shape creation is on check. Just like so. Now even if you were to create another shape, the properties panel will show up automatically unless you want it to. then you can just click here. Now I'm going to press Ctrl Z a few times to make sure we have just this shape selected. Now let's enable the properties panel. By the way, if you cannot see the properties panel from here, you can always go to Windows and make sure properties is checked. Now let's try to understand this window. The width value here is simply the width of the shape we have created. So if I need to expand the width, I can just come here and input maybe plus 400, then hit enter. As you can see, the width is extended. And if I need to increase the height, I can also go to the height value and input maybe plus 1000 and hit enter. Now if you feel like the height is too long, what you can simply do is to come back to the height value here. You put minus 1000 or minus 900. This time hit enter. Notice that I can also hover to this letter and then you scrub with that finger left and right to increase the width and height. Currently, as I drag left and right, only the width is affected. That is because the chain icon in between here is not checked. Let's turn the chain on, and this time if I change the width, the height will also be affected just like so. Now the next buttons down here represent the position of this shape with relation to the whole canvas. So the X value is the horizontal position and the Y value is the vertical position. If I need to move this rectangle shape left and right, I'll just click here and drag left and right like so. If I need to move it down, I can just crop on the Y value like so. Now as you can see on the options bar, we have the possibility to change the fill and stroke. The same options still apply here. We can also take the stroke pixels from here. Let's increase it maybe by 20 pixels, so I input 50 pixels there and hit enter. Now the next line here is simply going to allow you the possibility to make your stroke either a dash stroke or a dotted stroke. So if I choose this option, you see we get these dashes around, and if I choose this one, we get dots. Let's stay on the first option here, and for you to define your own stroke, you can click on the word dash line. When it is activated, you can input a custom dash right here. Let's say I want a dash of just 2, then I'll press the tab key, and I want a gap of 2. Press the tab key again, and this time I want a dash of 4 and a gap of 4. Now we have a custom stroke. For you to save this custom stroke so that you can use it later on in the future, you just click on this gear icon and choose save stroke, and you will see it here. Let's go back to the solid line, so I'll just click here to make sure everything is solid like so. Now this other button here is simply the alignment of this stroke. So notice here it is currently aligned to the inside. If I choose the middle option, part of the stroke will be aligned to the inside and part of it will be aligned to the outside. And if I choose the third option, the whole stroke will be aligned to the outside. The next buttons here is simply when you want to have maybe a rounded cap when you are drawing an open path with the pen tool. So if you notice that the ends of your paths are very sharp, you can choose this option to make the ends rounded. The next button here explains the corners and how they look. So currently we have sharp corners, which is why we have these sharp corners of this rectangle. But if you need to make them rounded corners, you just click on this button. If you need to make them chamfer corners, you click on this other button. Now notice one thing. These options right here are only available if you set the stroke alignment either to the middle or to the outside. To demonstrate that, let us switch the alignment to the inside. And as you can see, no matter the type of corner we choose, nothing is going to happen. To have chamfer corners, make sure your stroke is either aligned to the center or to the outside. I'm just going to click here and choose sharp corners. Now below that, we get these boxes. These boxes simply represent the 4 walls of this rectangle as we can see. So if I need to control this option right here, I'll also come here and then make sure the chain icon in the middle here is not checked, and then I'll be able to control that section by dragging on it. Only that section gets affected. If I need to control this other section down here, I'll just come here and click and then just drag as well. Now only this section gets affected. Let's press Ctrl Z a few times, and this time if I want to affect everything as I drag one portion, then I'll make sure I activate the chain icon in the middle here. Now if I scrub on one value, you can see the other values get affected. The reason why I'm taking some time to explain all of these settings is because most of these settings apply when you have other shape tools selected, such as the ellipse tool, so I won't have to explain them again. Now I'm just going to click here to hide the properties panel, and let's explore other tools. Now I'll press the backspace key to delete this shape, and let us right click here again and choose the rounded rectangle tool. Now the rounded rectangle tool, guys, is just the same as the rectangle tool. The only difference is that once you click to create a shape, as you can see, the corners get rounded automatically. Apart from this, everything else works the same as the normal rectangle tool. So I'm going to press the backspace key to get rid of it. The next tool here is the ellipse tool. The ellipse tool helps you to create ellipses and perfect circles. To create an ellipse, you can just click and drag like so. And to create a circle, you can click and drag. While you are dragging, you hold the shift key. And that is going to lock the width and height to the same value as you can see on the heads-up display. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo that. And the next tool here is the polygon tool, which is very helpful. Now, as you can see within this group, we don't have the triangle tool or the hexagon tool. So the polygon tool solves all that problem. With the polygon tool selected, you notice we have something here called the sides. So if I need to create maybe a triangle, I can just input 3 sides here. And I will be able to create a triangle just like so. If I need to create maybe a pentagon is shaped with 5 sides, I can just input 5 there and just create a pentagon like so. And if I need maybe an octagon is shaped with 8 sides, I can just input 8 right there, hit the enter key and just click to create an octagon just like so. Now if you need to create a star, what you simply have to do is to click on the screen. And as you can see, we can make it a star. The number of sides, a star has 5 sides, so let's input 5 right there and just click OK. And we get a perfect star right here. You can also click again and choose smooth corners. Since it is a star with smooth corners, let's see what happens. This time, as you can see, the corners actually get rounded a bit. The next tool on this list is the line tool. The line tool helps you to create lines, so it is self-explanatory. On the layers panel, we can see we have created polygon 1 up to polygon 5. So with the top layer selected, I'm going to hold the shift key, select polygon 1 and then just press the backspace key to delete them. Now let's click again on the shape tools and choose the custom shape tool. On the options bar, as you can see, we have custom presets that ship with Photoshop. You can click on this arrow beside each group to expand it. So let us say I intend to draw maybe this tree. I can just double click on the tree and just click. While I'm clicking, I can hold this shift key to constrain the proportions and I let go. Now for this, I don't actually want a stroke on the tree, so I'll click on the stroke here and make it a no fill. Let's click somewhere to deselect everything and you see we have this nice tree on the canvas. Let's zoom in towards the trunk. And as you learn, we can make sure the tree layer is selected. And then with our direct selection tool, we can be able to modify maybe the trunk. So I'll select it and then I can be able to drag this control handle and move it outside like so. Drag this other one and move it outside again like so. So you can always consider this as a good starting point. As you can see, the tree has been drawn from a custom shape. But how exactly are these custom shapes created? Let me show you how. I'll start by deleting the tree and then I'll grab maybe my ellipse tool. So I'll just click somewhere around here to create an ellipse. Then on the options bar, I'm going to choose subtract from shape, then select ellipse again and just create another ellipse inside here. Let's add some buttons here and maybe another button here. Now to define this ellipse as a custom shape, with my shape tool selected, I can just right click and then choose define custom shape. Then I'll just call this maybe circle and press enter. Now let's get rid of it. If I now click on my shape tools and go to custom shape tool, I can be able to go to the options bar and click on this arrow and choose this particular shape which we created a moment ago. Now I'll double click on it, and since it is loaded, I can be able to click and drag just like so. I can also hold the shift key and we are able to create a custom shape just like so. To modify the colors, you can also double click on the circle thumbnail. That will bring up the color picker window and we can change maybe to this color. As you can see, only the fill gets affected. To modify the stroke, you simply go here on the options bar or the properties panel and choose maybe another color for the stroke, such as this color. Now, before I created this shape, I click here on the option bar and choose subtract from shape. These are the path operations that are similar to the pathfinder operation inside Adobe Illustrator. Let's understand how it works. So I'll start by pressing the backspace key to delete this layer, and let's switch to maybe the rectangle tool. As I click to drag to create, you notice that it is labeled rectangle 1 on the layers panel. Now by default, it is always set to new layer. With this option, if I were to create another shape, it will be created as rectangle 2 as we can see. But if I make sure no layer is selected, and then I go to this button and I choose combine shapes, then I select maybe rectangle tool. This time, even if I click here, as you see, the rectangle we just created gets added to rectangle tool. And if we need to subtract any portion of it, first we make sure it is not selected, because as it is selected, if I were to just go up here on the options bar and choose subtract from shape, this operation will still remember the rectangle we just created a moment ago. So I'll press Ctrl Z to undo. So the safe way to work is to make sure nothing is selected, and then you go to the options bar and choose subtract from shape. So you have to decide what you have to do first. Now you select the layer you want to affect, and then maybe you create a minor shape here like so, and another one. You are not limited to this, guys. You can also switch maybe to the ellipse tool, and with that option still set, you can click in the middle here to create an ellipse. Now with my move tool, I can be able to move everything we have on this layer as one, as you can see. But it doesn't mean you can't be able to modify maybe this ellipse here. As you learn, we can use the path selection tool to move the whole shape around, or we can use the direct selection tool. So if I don't like the position of the ellipse, I can select the path selection tool. Then with that layer selected, I just click on the ellipse to select it. Then I can be able to move it to any other given location like so. I can even switch to the direct selection tool, and then I can make sure just this point is selected, and I can extend it towards this section. Now with my ellipse tool selected, let's go here on the options bar and click on this button. Because this time, I want you to be able to understand intersect shape areas. So with no layer selected, I'm going to make sure this option is set to new layer, because I want to create a brand new layer for the ellipse. I'll just click somewhere around here like so. Now I'll deselect all the layers by clicking on this empty portion. Then I'll go to the options bar and choose intersect shape areas. Now I'll select this ellipse. Since I already have that option set, if I just click here to create another ellipse, you will see that anything that is within the range of this ellipse will be kept, and everything that is outside of that range will be cut out, just like so. Now as we click here, we have this other component, which is merge shape components. If I were to just activate that option, both the ellipse I created and the one that was used to intersect this one are now merged as one shape. Now with all these explanations in mind, let's proceed to creating the social media icon I showed you from the intro. I'm just going to get rid of everything we have here. And with my ellipse tool, I'm just going to click to draw an ellipse like so. I want to make it a perfect circle, so I'll hold the shift key, just like so. Now let's take the stroke up to 80 pixels, and let's click here to change the stroke color to this color. Now for the fill, I want this other color which is similar to the stroke color. And then with no layer selected, I'm going to grab my text tool. Even after doing that, because the D letter is curved towards this direction, I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to move it to the right like so. Now I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'll just create a rectangle like so. I'll move it somewhere around here. And for this rectangle, I don't actually want the stroke fill, so I'm going to remove it and make it a solid fill color and choose white. Because the white is similar to the background, I can't be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to delete the background layer and then create a solid color background layer. Now with rectangle 1, I am going to press Ctrl T to transform it, and on the options bar, as you can see, I have the reference point check, and now I can be able to move these reference points here to this portion. Now I'll just click on this corner to rotate around the point I just set, then confirm the transformation. Now I'm going to take down the opacity to explain why I'm doing this. Now as you can see, I'm trying to align the rectangle in such a way that it cuts through the D from this sharp corner right here. I'll take up the opacity, and this is where things get interesting. I am going to move the rectangle below the ellipse, and let us hide the text layer for a moment. And now let us say I intend to limit this rectangle shape just within the circle. So what you might think is the preferred way of working would be to hold the Alt key and add a clipping mask in between here. Of course, that is going to work. But as you can see, even if I take the opacity to make it interesting, the clipping mask doesn't affect the stroke of the circle. So to make sure it affects the stroke of the circle, I'm going to press Ctrl Z a few times. What I simply have to do is to make sure I put this ellipse one inside a group. So I'll just select that layer and press Ctrl G to group it. Now with this layer in a group, any clipping marks I apply now will affect everything including the stroke, as you can see. So this is similar to what you would do inside Adobe Illustrator using the shape builder tool. Now I can select the rectangle shape and take its opacity down. I can even double click on the rectangle thumbnail and choose maybe this color. So let's enable the text layer. And as you can see right now, the text layer seems like it is floating on top of everything and it doesn't look nice and realistic. So let's just drag the text layer and put it within the group with the clipping marks, and we get this effect on the screen. If you feel like playing further, you can maybe increase the opacity up or reduce it further. But I think this actually looks nice. As you can see, the icon is okay and we have this cutout effect right here. Right now the cutout effect doesn't actually pronounce in these portions because the fill we sampled was the same fill that was used here. So I'm just going to double click on the thumbnail with the shape layer one more time, and this time I try to define another fill to make it really stand out from the other portion, just like so. Now it becomes clearer that this portion has actually been cut out. So this is how you can use the text tool together with the shape tools to create this kind of icon inside Photoshop. Now let us proceed to creating the profile picture for Instagram. I'm going to close this document, then I'll go to File and choose New. Now something which you need to be aware is the aspect ratio of an Instagram profile picture. The aspect ratio is just 1:1. So for example here, we need to create a profile picture for Instagram, so I'm going to define a custom width and height. I'm just going to go with a width of 2000, then I'll press the Tab key and enter a height of 2000 as well. Now as you can see, if we divide 2000 by 2000, we get 1. So we have an aspect ratio of 1:1. With that said, let's set the unit to pixels and just click on Create. Now I have an image on my desktop, so I'll just drag it into Photoshop and I'll just place it somewhere inside here. Now since this is going to be a profile picture, I actually want the guy's face to be visible, so I'm going to press Ctrl T, and as you must have noticed, the image came in as a smart object, which is very important. So I'll just scale the image up and make sure it fits within the desired portion I want. Then I'll just confirm the transformation. Now if you look on Instagram, the profile pictures are actually in the form of a circle. So let's grab our ellipse tool, and with the same dimensions I created this document with, I'm just going to click somewhere in the center here. Now on the width, I'm going to enter 2000, and then I'll press the Tab key to move to the height, and I'll input 2000 as well. Then since I want this ellipse to be created from the center, I'm going to choose from center and then click on OK. Now I'm going to press Ctrl A to select everything, and then with my move tool, I'm just going to click on this button and this button to make sure everything is aligned perfectly. Then I'll press Ctrl D to deselect. With this ellipse, I don't actually want the stroke, so I'm going to switch to my shape tool. You can also select the path selection tool or the pen tool in order to have access to the fill and stroke from here, or you can modify them from the properties panel as we learn. Now I'm just going to click on the stroke and make it no stroke. Nothing happens because that shape layer is not selected, so let's select it and then go here and choose no stroke. Now I actually want another copy of this ellipse, so I'm going to press Ctrl J to duplicate it, and I'll just call this one ellipse 2. Now I'm going to move ellipse 1 below the image we just imported, and I'll hide this other ellipse above it. Now I only want this image to be visible within ellipse 1, so I'm going to hold the Alt key and clip it, just like so. Now let's get rid of the background and let's enable the ellipse on the top. With the ellipse selected, this time I want a stroke. Let's just pick any random color. We are going to modify that, and on the fill I actually want no fill. Now I'm going to increase the stroke up to 80 pixels and say OK. Now everything looks nice, but I want this stroke to be a gradient stroke. So I'll click on the stroke option and choose gradient. And then I'll just pick this custom gradient from here. You can go ahead and export this image like this, because after all, even if we add a background, it will not be visible. Because what is going to be visible will be only the portion we define with this circular frame. Anyway, let's just add a nice contrasting background. Let's just go here and then choose maybe solid color. Now let's adjust the brightness of the image a bit. So I'll make sure I have the image selected, and then I'll go to adjustment layers and add the curves adjustment layer. I'll just click on this slider and then just move it towards the left. And this is the result we get. So as you can see guys, we have actually covered a lot in this video, and I hope you have actually learned something new. Comment down below to let me know what I left out, so that in future videos we might actually bring an update. Thank you for watching, and if you got value out of this video guys, kindly subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to see you in the next one tomorrow. Good luck.